Hello, my name is Sarah. I am an English teacher and language anxiety coach. And in this video, I'm going to give you 3 tips on how you can deal with unhelpful English native speakers. Now, I'm making this video because a student of mine who is from Korea and who has pretty decent English has been applying for jobs recently. And he's been sharing some of his experiences with me about the interviews. Now, some of the interviews were in Korean, but some of them were also in English with some American interviewers. And my student was explaining what that was like for him as a non-native English speaker. And basically, some English native speakers are very sympathetic towards non-native speakers. They have a, an understanding of what it's like maybe to speak a foreign language. But I would also say that quite a lot of English native speakers, because we are not that great at learning foreign languages, we are not that well equipped to understand what it's like to be a foreign language speaker. And in fact, I would go so far as to say that there are English native speakers who can be really quite arrogant in the way that they expect other people to always meet their expectations without ever really considering what they could do to help their non-native speaker friends, colleagues, and relations. So if you have a job where you need to speak English, or if you have family members who are English native speakers and sometimes there are issues with communication, this will be a good video for you. So the first problem I think that we all experience as foreign language speakers is when people simply talk too fast. And I remember this very clearly living in China, that it just seemed that people had no concept of how hard it was for me to understand spoken Chinese. So they would speak to me as if they were talking to a Chinese person. I, I, I couldn't understand. It was just too fast. Now, as the foreign language learner, I think we all tend to blame ourselves when there are problems with communication. And we tend to think, well, it must be my fault because obviously my listening just isn't good enough. Or it must be my fault because I don't understand and I must be stupid. And I remember thinking those thoughts in China. However, when I studied NLP, or neuro linguistic programming, NLP is a lot about communication, and they talk about how it is actually the responsibility of the speaker to make sure that their message is expressed in a way that other people can understand. So, for example, in this video, it's my responsibility to do my best with my speaking to make sure that as many non-native English speakers as possible can understand. So if I spoke really, really quickly, like I was talking to a friend like this, it would be much, much harder for you to understand. And then if I started to use colloquialisms and idioms and slang, it would be even more difficult. And that would be my fault for not trying to make my message understandable. So when you don't understand a native speaker, it isn't your fault, and you have nothing to feel ashamed about. Okay, so dealing with this problem of speaking too quickly, like I just did back there, first thing to do, the obvious thing, ask people to slow down. Okay, now I understand at work that can feel a little bit awkward, in a meeting, maybe, oh, I'm the only person who doesn't understand. But you don't know that you're the only person who didn't understand, number one. And number two, actually, you matter. You're important. It matters that you understand what's happening. So ask people to slow down. And a great phrase for doing this is to say, sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you say that again? Sorry, I didn't quite catch that. Could you say that again? And this is a really nice informal way to ask people to repeat something. You can even say, I'm really sorry, that was just a little bit fast. Could you just say it again a little bit more slowly? And most people, if you say that to them, will oblige. Okay. Yes, there will be the odd person who won't slow down. Some people think that if we just talk more loudly, we'll be more understandable. But of course, it doesn't work like that. So just ask people to be a little bit more slow. Now, the second problem that you might face if you have native speaker colleagues or you have family members or friends who are native speakers is that they use a lot of colloquial language, such as idioms, slang, and kind of those really weird expressions that, you know, native speakers like to use. Course books never teach. And so you're like, what? I don't understand what that means. And again, you know, this is a problem, and I could be using much more colloquial language in this video, but it is my responsibility to make my video understandable. So therefore, I'm choosing not to use it. So one thing you can do, again, is to just be honest. Okay. And I think, again, it comes back to when you don't understand, it is not your fault. Okay, so if someone says something and you think, what, that idiom, what? Just say, hey, you know, that was an amazing idiom, but I didn't really know what it meant. Can you explain that for me? And that will work really well with friends, family members, and colleagues that you get on well with. Just ask. Don't be ashamed, because actually knowing what they're talking about and learning that idiom is really good for you. So ask them. And then if it's a situation at work, and I have heard people, non-native speakers, talking about this, that they might be in a meeting at work, lots of native speaker colleagues, and the native speaker colleagues are talking and talking and talking very fast, lots of colloquial language, lots of idioms, lots of slang, and the non-native speaker doesn't understand anything. One suggestion for you is to maybe speak with your immediate manager. Now, I know that that can be really scary. Okay, I understand that, because maybe it means like, oh my God, they're going to think I'm stupid because I don't understand. If you have a sympathetic, understanding manager who values you as a person and what you bring to your company, they will want to know that you can participate in meetings. And that means that you are able to understand what people say. So it might be worth having a conversation with them. Hey, look, sometimes in meetings, people talk very fast. Some of the language is a little bit strange. Could we maybe look at ways of making sure we all use plain, simple English? And in fact, in the UK, there is a campaign for English native speakers to use plain, simple English, because sometimes even we don't understand each other. So don't feel ashamed of wanting to ask for plain, simple English. I ask for it. Sorry, could you say that in plain English, please? Sorry, can you use more simple words, please? There's nothing wrong with asking for that. Now, the final one that I want to talk about here, and again, this is something that I remember so well from being in China, is when you basically just get left out of the conversation. So there's native speaker, and they're chatting and they're talking and they're talking and they're chatting. And, you know, you're trying to listen and you're trying to join in, but you kind of can't. It's too difficult because you don't understand how turn taking works, or people are just speaking too fast, or you don't get invited into the conversation. And this can be really, really horrible. It can be very someone's come to wash my windows. It can be very uncomfortable for you because you're like, I don't know what to say. I don't know how to join in, so I'll just sit here. If it was me now in that situation and I was with people I felt comfortable with, I would tell them what I was experiencing. I would say, hey, I'm really enjoying this conversation. It's really interesting listening to you guys, but I feel a little bit left out because I'm finding it really hard to join in. Would it be possible for us to kind of just take turns a little bit more? Or maybe I can share my opinion now, because the native speakers might not realize what you're going through. In fact, they probably don't realize what you're going through. And they will just continue talking and talking and talking unless they understand your position. So you as the native speaker, you need to understand that in general, we are not always very good at understanding what you go through. And therefore, you need to educate us in your experiences as the non-native speaker, because most likely your native speaker colleagues and friends don't have that experience. They just won't understand what it's like. Okay. So those are my 3 tips for dealing with difficult native speakers. So let me know in the comments below. Number 1, have you had negative experiences with native English speakers? Number 2, how were you able to solve those negative experiences? And maybe number 3, do you have any tips that you would share for other people who experience difficulties with native speakers? Thank you so much for watching this video. If you're watching on YouTube, please do go and subscribe to my channel because I put new videos out all the time. Any other comments, questions, or even requests, please leave them in the comments below. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.